Oh my god, are we recording? That is so like this video to start off like that. Because this is the fourth time I'm trying to film it. Stay. Okay. Also you. Stay. I'm kidding. No, today we're gonna be talking about foundations. And fear. And paranoia and anything you really don't want in your life that causes you disease. And we're going to talk about how said fear and paranoia exists in the external or is reflected in our external reality. And we're going to talk about how to change that. So, I came to this idea, formula, conclusion by, to be frank, being paranoid about something. And my mindset was, without me knowing, was how do I escape what I am paranoid about? And as I'm talking to myself in the kitchen about this and like doing self therapy, right, I come to realize that literally by having that subconscious thought pattern made it real, made the paranoia real. Now, I've done a couple things. I've tried to just ignore the paranoia, and sometimes that works. Sometimes that is alchemy. But this time it just wasn't. And the reason I couldn't really ignore it to get it to leave was because of where the frequency that is attached to the theme of what I was paranoid of, where that frequency rests in my chakras or dimensions. I use chakras and dimensions interchangeably. I think that they are the same thing, but chakras and envisioning said chakras on the body are a really grounded way to envision said dimensions. I realized and I learned that the fear was showing up in the most foundational of the lower dimensions slash chakras, that being dimension 0, which is like the under the root chakra, under the first dimension. Now, it's not entirely in the dimension 0. It's not at the bottom of it. It's not really in the middle. It's like at the top and in between the merging point of dimension 1 and dimension 0, or root chakra and etc. I just like did a bronchi cough just a second ago because I am alchemizing and confirmation burp. All right, anyway, so once I realized that this paranoia, right, was showing up externally, it brought it to my attention that it was coming from lower chakras. It was coming from foundational chakras. These specific chakras, 0 and 1, and 2 to a very large degree, create our external reality that we live, the tangible, fleshy, objecty part. And just from my knowledge of like being a healer, I know that there are some unwanted stuff that can get into our chakras until we become aware of it and we remove it. And that is honestly exactly like this. That's the end of the video. That is exactly what it is. It's kind of doing the math, putting the puzzle pieces together. Okay, if this is in my external, then it's coming from this place, and I can remove that. If it's just coming from my internal emotions, it's probably coming from the solar plexus or the sacral dimension, which would be 2 and 3. And I can, remove it. When it comes to removing, that is something that I was stewing on in the kitchen while I was having this conversation with myself. And I kind of realized you can do a lot of different things. I think with this particular, my particular situation, where it's positioned in said dimension, or where it's positioned anyway, subliminals and spending more time with myself. So that looks like mirror work, kind of like this, um, and speaking it out loud. The thing about speaking stuff out loud, I think, I'm talking about my specific situation, like what was going to work for me, but speaking stuff out loud works for everything. And I'll tell you why. So after I asked myself, okay, why would speaking out loud be the way to go about it? I realized as I try to speak, I realized that when you bring stuff up through the voice, you are actually bringing it up through the chakras, because it has to go like a pretty long distance up to get to the voice and to get to the head to put it into the voice, and etc., etc. And through that whole entire process, that is so much alchemy. And like we do alchemy all the time like this. We don't even realize this, right? Um every thought to, like, if we go deep into this, like every thought that we have starts from dimension 0 and comes up through our I almost said through our ass, through our body, and gets into our head and then goes out this way. And that means it also has to go through the heart dimension or chakra. In that heart dimension chakra, like everything is healed in this space, in my experience. It's like purity at its finest. And if you really think about it, like in the upper chakras, there is like uncomfortable energy that can like linger there for different reasons, but it's not as, like, if we're gonna talk about it like in frequency, like, and in color, like how I see the upper chakras is they're like a paler color, and it is, as opposed to the lower ones. And the reason for that is because they're the frequency, the sound that they vibrate at is so much, faster. Um, and it's, if you look at a sound wave for like lower chakras, it's like spaced out and like deeper, and it kind of permeates through things at like that lower frequency, like more than a higher frequency would. So, like, if you think of high frequency, you can't hear it after a certain point, but you can always hear low frequency. You can always feel low frequency too if you can't hear it, because it's so, that's just how it works. It just permeates. And so, in that way, I do think that it's less dense up here, right, than it is down there for those reasons. And if there is any density to a certain point, I know like mental health stuff is totally real and there are reasons for that as well. But let's just say like the crown or the heart, right? Like those dimensions, it's like the frequency is so high that it's like all that it could be dense feels light, and it kind of just like sways by you. For some people, this is just more comfortable, and I'm one of those people. But anyway, I'm kind of getting sidetracked. But basically, bringing up these frequencies in these lower frequencies into the higher frequencies, um, it takes a lot of the stuff out. It filters it, cleans it like cleaning like water. Um, and that's also not to say that any of the lower frequencies are bad. They have their purpose. It is a paradise down there sometimes. We need it for this beautiful world that we live in. And so there's nothing wrong with them. It's just sometimes, for alchemy purposes, bringing it up and out is super good for it. Um, And then there is the, once you talk about it, right? Sometimes when people talk, they don't think before they talk. So it doesn't really reach this type of dimension. Now, this is a layer above even the throat, so it's even at a higher frequency than the throat. I do think that mental reprogramming, like holy moly, subliminals or affirmations, maybe continuous like positive self affirmation or positive um, the only word that's coming to mind is fuel, like being like, oh, I will get $100 by this day, I will get so and so, that it's like programming your belief system, right? That is super important as well because it further cleans said water. And like if we're especially talking for like paranoia, right, like it's going to just alchemize the shit out of that. But it does take consistency for a lot of different things. Especially, I mean, mine was coming from dimension 0. That is, the color of that dimension to me is completely black. And I did say it was like in the middle. So it has like a mixture of red, a mixture of black, but it's still like really low vibrations. So I think with this particular one, I'll be using some mental reprogramming, but it was a cool lesson for me, and I wanted to share it with you. So thank you for listening. Um, and good luck up there. Up there. Okay. Good luck up there, wherever you are, in the mountains somewhere. On this alchemy and metaphysical mayhem we got on this beautiful planet. All right. Cheers.